This month is Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome Awareness Month. To do my part for raising awareness for EDS, I decided that I was going to do an Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome Q&A. EDS is a connective tissue disorder. It affects organs, blood, skin, bones, pretty much everything. It causes stretchy skin, poor healing, loose joints, chronic dislocations and subluxations. It causes tendons to be very fragile, so you can tear them often. It can cause gastroparesis or intestinal and GI tract dysmotility or other GI issues. It can cause autonomic dysfunction or dysautonomia. When people hear EDS, they think, oh, you're very bendy and you dislocate your joints, but it's actually so much more than that. It affects everything. Technically 14 years, but most of that time I was not showing the symptoms that I have now. From the time that I actually started showing a bunch of symptoms, it was about 1.5, maybe 2 years, which is really fast compared to most people. I had a few symptoms my whole life since I was born. They obviously weren't significant enough to lead to a diagnosis. It wasn't until about 6th or 7th grade where I started dislocating joints and having lots and lots of pain and other issues like that. I started getting tendinitis all the time. I was constantly in braces and boots and all on crutches and in a wheelchair because I was constantly hurting myself, and I would hurt myself doing basic activities. I shouldn't have hurt myself, so it was kind of starting to be concerning when I would suddenly just wake up with an injury. My body just kind of started to fall apart, basically. And ever since then, my symptoms have just been progressing. Yes, all the time. Typically, on average, I dislocate at least 20 joints every single day. I wake up every morning and I have to put both of my hips back into place. Typically, an elbow or two. Recently, it's been my left wrist every morning. I'll be walking and my ankle will dislocate underneath of me, or my knee will give out to the side. I can't carry really anything heavy because it pulls my shoulders out of socket. I can't wash my own hair because the tips of my fingers and my hands and sometimes my wrist will dislocate, and also my shoulders with above my head. That doesn't really work super well. I subluxate pieces of my neck and back, and pretty much every joint in my body that can move moves too much and too far. My shoulders pretty much permanently subluxated or pretty much dislocated. I'll show you. If you're squeamish, don't watch this part. So this is pretty much where my shoulder sits the majority of the time. So in comparison, that is what it looks like in place. So it's being held in place right now by me. And when I let go, the bone slides off to the side, up forwards. The bone slides forwards. And that's pretty much where my arm sits for the past, I would say, at least month and a half. I, on average, dislocate at least 20 joints every day. I have the hypermobility type, which used to be called type 3, but it's now just known as the hypermobility type. Currently there's no cure. Hopefully one day. As for treatments, it's mainly about managing symptoms. I do physical therapy twice a week, which is one of the biggest things that's important when you have EDS, is lots of physical therapy to keep your joints as strong as possible to hopefully minimize dislocations. it's mainly about managing symptoms. So if you get an injury, you deal with that injury, or because injuries are very common and they happen so easily, that if you get an injury, you manage that injury, or you kind of just manage the symptoms as they come, really. I have a brace for almost every joint. I'll show you a few examples. These guys spent a lot of time in these boots. This was my first one. It's a little smaller because I was in 7th grade. This is my... I just hit myself in the face. I've spent months and months in these boots. Typically from tendinitis. I have also been in this boot for a stress fracture, and just in general lots of injuries that have required these lovely friends that I dislike. Let's go through the pile, shall we? So this isn't even all of them, but this is a lot of them. So first off, they're all stuck together. I have a drawer, and so they've all been in the drawer. I have rolls and rolls of Ace Wrap. So many rolls. This is a shoulder immobilizer, which basically it wraps around here and straps your arm. Fun stuff. Wrist braces. Knee braces and knee sleeves. Knee immobilizers, which wrap around your whole leg to keep it still. Then a sling, another sling, another sling. Some braces that I don't have out right now are, I have my robot arm, which has a hinge at the elbow and then straps, and it's just this big metal brace that, like, it has settings so you can control how much movement the arm has. I'm also awaiting another shoulder brace, which will be a brace that I'll wear every day, but it hasn't come yet, so still waiting. Yeah, I have quite the brace collection, sadly. One time I think I tried to put on all of my braces at once. I'll see if I can put that picture in here, but yeah. So, the biggest thing I use every day is my forearm crutch, which I only use one. Some people use two, but I only use one, because my left arm really isn't strong enough for it to be beneficial, so I only use one on my right arm. I use it for balance because I get dizzy a lot, which is part of a condition that goes along with EDS. It's called dysautonomia. But I use it for stairs, I use it for walking long distances, for stability on uneven ground, because my joints are very unstable, so uneven ground I need a little bit of help. So yeah, this is probably the biggest thing that I use. About 75% of the time that I'm out of the house, I'm in a wheelchair. I use a wheelchair for lots of different reasons. The biggest one being joint pain and instability. It's most comfortable for me to use a wheelchair when I'm going to be walking a long distance or around a lot or going to be up on my feet. And also because of fatigue, and I tire very easily, so a wheelchair just comes in handy for trips like that. I also have a PICC line, which I get saline infusions through twice a week. The saline helps with my dizziness, and I have a lower blood volume, so by getting saline it bumps up my blood volume, which in turn increases the blood flow to your head and makes you less dizzy. It also helps hydrate me, as I have a really hard time doing that myself because of gastroparesis, which all of these things are caused by Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. that's what I use that for. I'll show you what it looks like. So this is what my PICC line looks like. Underneath of this is the tubing and extension. So basically this is like an IV line that stays in me all the time. I've had it for almost 4 months. It's not really of any relevance, but I did name him Patrick. So this is Patrick the PICC line. You gotta make it fun, people. It goes into my arm here, and it travels all the way up and sits just above my heart. And that way I can receive IV fluids through it without any pokes and without trying to get a vein, because I have very bad veins, so it's very difficult. So this makes it nice and easy. And I have to do everyday care for the PICC line, so I have to flush it in the morning and at night, and anytime you deal with that. So that's something that I deal with every day for medical equipment. I guess it's equipment. It's a medical device that I use. So that's pretty much the everyday medical things that I use. I would say the biggest positive is getting the chance to meet so many amazing people. I have met so many strong, brave people who fight this fight as well that I never would have gotten to meet. I never would have had the chance to meet some of my closest friends if I didn't have EDS. For that, I'm very grateful. Another is I get to be a zebra. That's a little weird. Let me explain. In medical school, doctors are taught the phrase, when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. That's to help them when they're diagnosing patients, as when they see a list of symptoms, they don't immediately jump to the most rare thing, or a zebra. It's probably the most common thing, or a horse. Yeah, they're taught basically, like, it's probably the most common thing, or it's a horse, not a zebra. But zebras do exist. As rare as they are, zebras do exist. We with EDS call ourselves zebras. Lastly, it's given me a very close relationship with my parents, which is something I'm very grateful for. I rely a lot on my parents, and in a lot of ways that I wouldn't if I didn't have EDS. So it's made me very close to my parents, which I'm very happy about. That was my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome Q&A. I hope you found it informative and you enjoyed watching. If you have any other questions, feel free to comment them down below, and I will try to answer as many of them as I can. I hope to make more videos in the future, and I will see you next time. Bye!